Welcome to Umbrella Academy, right here at Comicstorian. This is where we take movies, video games, and of course, comic books. We break down the storylines into digestible bites and read them back to you dramatically, giving you the bare bones synopsis of the plot so that you understand what happened, but are still able to go out and buy it yourself. Umbrella Academy is one of my favorite television shows on Netflix, and so I thought it'd be fun to start covering the comic books themselves. So today is the first part of Umbrella Academy, Volume 1. It was the same year that Tusslin Tom Gurney leaped off the top rope, defeating the space squid from Rigel X9. It happened at 9:38 p.m. as Gurney's arm was raised. 43 extraordinary children were born, to mostly single mothers who had shown no signs of pregnancy, in seemingly random parts of the world. Those that survived were abandoned or put up for adoption. Thus entered Sir Reginald Hargreaves, aka the Monocle, the world-renowned scientist and entrepreneur, inventor of the televator, the levitator, the mobile umbrella communicator, and the clever crisp cereal. The man was an Olympic gold medalist and a recipient of the Nobel Prize for his work on cerebral advancements of the chimpanzee. He was also a space alien. For reasons unknown, Sir Reginald set out with his bodyguard aboard his private vessel, the Minerva. He tracked down and attempted to adopt as many of these children as he could. He only found 7. Hargreaves called a press conference where those gathered to ask him why he had sought out these children. To save the world, of course, he told them. To which the world responded. From what? The world received no answer as Hargreaves and his children disappeared from the eyes of the world, not to be seen again until that day. The day the Eiffel Tower went berserk. You see, in the shadow of the Eiffel Tower, a souvenir vendor prepared for his day. Popping up the umbrella, he turned as the broom falls nearby. Stooping to pick it up, he turns in shock as a man falls into his cart a few feet away. Later, he would explain to a police officer that the man didn't fall, he must have been pushed. The police believed this to be ridiculous, yet an hour later, the ground is littered with corpses. The officer tries to call in his report, but is interrupted by a small voice behind him. "Excuse me, sir, but I believe we could be of some assistance. It's your Eiffel Tower. It's gone insane and must be stopped at all costs," Number 1 tells him. The officer turns to see 5 children, dressed in school uniforms and domino masks. The cop begins to yell at them, telling them to leave, but the children begin to hover before him. "Allow me to introduce my subordinate. Number 3, one smiles. The little girl begins to look around, her voice commanding. "Citizens of Paris, I heard a rumor that the museum is giving away many of its finest paintings. They're also serving crepes." The crowd begins to immediately run away, and one comments that 3 did a good job. "Although we're going to have to recover those paintings now," he whispers. 4 gets his attention, pointing up to the top of the tower, which has begun to glow. A blast of energy shooting out, striking the ground as the children begin to scatter. Meanwhile, up above in Minerva, the private vessel of Reginald Hargreaves, 7 looks down on the battle from the viewport. Mr. Monocle, sir, why can't I play with the others?" she asks, looking back at Hargreaves' stern face. "Well, Number 7, there's nothing special about you," he tells her. She turns back sad, but asks where Number 5 is. Hargreaves sighs. "The future, I presume. Run away from home, no doubt. I can't be sure, nor can I be bothered. Why don't you go play your violin?" So back at the battle below, the children are flying around the tip of the tower, which has opened up to reveal an antenna. "Any bright ideas, fearless leader?" 2 asks. 6 tries to hold on to 4, who is trying to contact a dead engineer from the spirit world. "Save your breath, we're all gonna die!" 2 shouts. 1 gets angry, flying towards the tower, punching it hard, knocking it down. "Why don't you shut up?" he shouts. The tower tips, crashing hard into the city. "To the control tower, I have a hunch," 1 shouts as the team speeds ahead, and they burst through the wall, discovering an undead man in a steam-powered suit. "Just as I suspected," 1 tells the team. "Zombie robot Gustave Eiffel." "Alive after all these years?" 3 asks, but 2 pushes them aside, throwing one of his knives. "Not for long," he shouts. The blade hits Eiffel in the head, slamming him into a large button. "Everyone out, now!" 1 shouts, telling them that he thinks the tower is taking off. "Why?" 3 asks as they run away from the blast. "Because it's not a monument, children. It's a spaceship," Hargreaves explains to them as they look up and watch the Eiffel Tower soaring into space. "While you lost the Eiffel Tower, you saved Paris, and you know what that means," he says, looking down at the kids. The key to the city and ice cream for everyone, the mayor tells them as the city celebrates the children saving the day. Yet as everyone celebrates, one is merely looking up in the sky, causing Hargreaves to ask what is wrong with the boy. Mr. Monocle, sir, when I grow up, I want to go into space, one tells him. And so you shall, number one, so you shall, Hargreaves tells him. 20 years go by. Number one stands on the moon looking at the earth far away. Now he's grown with a large gorilla body. His radio suddenly crackles and Annihilation Control breaks through, telling him that Dr. Pogo is on the phone. His mighty gorilla body leaps into the air as he rockets back towards his base, and inside he speaks to Pogo and he asks if it's the big one. A moment passes. Negative, Pogo. You know I can't leave my post. A threat may finally be... What? Okay, I'm on my way. He tells Pogo, hanging up the phone. A short time later, he's blasting off from the moon, hurtling towards Earth. Meanwhile, in the city, Vanya wakes up to the sound of her phone ringing. She answers, noting the novel sitting on her nightstand. You know your father's dead, right? The voice in the line tells her. The voice tells her that he is performing a show and would like her to audition. Why would I do that? She asks, looking out the window. Revenge. Be at the Icarus Theater at noon tomorrow, he tells her, hanging up. One's ship lands outside the Hargreaves Manor, and he moves through the house, finally arriving at Hargreaves' study. Dr. Pogo, is it true? He asks, staring at the chimpanzee sitting behind the desk. Yes, Sir Reginald is dead. Pogo nods. And something worse is coming, the boy standing next to him says. One is shocked to see his brother. Number 5? Where have you been for the last 20 years? What's happening? One asks. But Pogo holds up his hand, telling the man that it can wait until the others arrive tomorrow. Number 1, Space Boy, was awoken by someone calling his name, and the bed squeaks as he shifts his massive gorilla body, staring at Pogo, who holds a cup of coffee. Your sister has arrived, Pogo tells him, sipping the cup of joe, telling him that Allison has been standing beneath Ben's statue for the last 30 minutes. She looks nervous. 1, Luther, heads outside to find his sister staring up at the statue of their dead brother. It wasn't your fault, you know. I know everyone blames you for what happened, but none of us really knows what happened that day, she tells him without looking at him. Rumor, he says to her, but she turns, commenting on how he still uses code names and is even still wearing his mask. They make small talk, with Luther trying to remember what her ex-husband's name was. How's the moon? Any sign of genocidal alien threats? Any world-eating star phantoms? She asks politely. You know what I love about funerals? A voice calls from above, interrupting their conversation. Everything I own is black. Klaus calls to them. Klaus begins to float towards the door, hoping that they have a pot of coffee on for the funeral. Where is the old corpse? I have a bone to pick with him about cutting off my allowance, he says. Meanwhile, in the city, the families are enjoying the local carnival when suddenly there's a massive explosion, with flying robots appearing, shouting at the startled crowd. The Umbrella Academy has a high probability of reforming in 2 hours, 22 minutes, and 11 seconds. We seek instant retribution. This area of recreation will serve as a suitable theater for eradication due to its high probability of civilian fatalities. The robots all gather and look around, but everyone has already gone back to their day. In retaliation, the robots begin to blast the carnival, creating destruction. Dad always told me not to go too far into the future, because he told me I could never go back. And even though I hated him, I tried to prove him wrong. 5 tells his family, explaining where he's been for the last 20 years. The younger 5 stands looking out over the destruction of the city. I knew I shouldn't have run away from home. It took me a few days to discover that I was the only one left alive as I wandered the apocalypse. But once I figured it out, I was ecstatic. No one could tell me what to do. But of course, I eventually discovered that that was a bad thing. I found the book written by Vanya and discovered how everything went bad. So I decided to go back. I spent the next 50 years trying to prove our father wrong and figure out how to travel back in time. 5, now an old man in the story, leans against the wall that his equations are written on. That was when he gave up. But suddenly a voice speaks to him, so 5 turns to see an old mannequin. You're an idiot. You forgot to subtract the 2 from the 1 like 12 years ago. I wasn't gonna say anything, but... She tells him. 5 lifts up the mannequin, ecstatic. Dolores! You figured it out! How could I have been so blind? He shouts with joy. And so 5 bids farewell to his apocalypse love, returning once more to the past. But something went wrong. Something pulled me out of the time stream much too soon. 5 explains to them, now sitting in one of their old classrooms in the mansion. Hargreaves' death, Luther muses. 5 nods, admitting that it is a possibility, but he was already dead when he arrived. If your story checks out, Diego, number 2, tells him. He leans against the wall, fiddling with one of his knives as he explains that all of the security cameras in the mansion went dead at 6:44 p.m. But he managed to break into the coroner's office to confirm that Hargreaves died of a heart attack. Apparently, he finishes. Diego steps into the room with Luther ordering him to stand down. Still giving orders, monkey boy? Last time I checked, your zip code doesn't exactly qualify you as a team leader, Diego growls. But Pogo enters the room, telling the family to stop bickering so they can go bury their father. And they step outside, now dressed in their old costumes, standing over the coffin. Does anyone wish to say anything? Pogo asks, but the others are silent. He wasn't the best father and an even worse husband, but if he was guilty of anything, it was caring for the world so much that he sacrificed his personal relationships, unfortunately. He never asked us how we felt about that, the woman says, stepping out from behind a tree, her body covered by a long coat, hiding everything but her head. Diego steps up as she continues to speak, pulling off the coat to reveal what truly lies beneath. She stands there, more mannequin than person. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have come, she cries, black tears beginning to fall from her eyes. Rumor comes over, draping their mother's coat back over her as the woman apologizes for not wearing her limbs. They're just so uncomfortable, she tells Allison. Luther begins to reprimand Diego, but the hero doesn't care. Everything is a lie, cowboy. Hargreaves left us with nothing more than a mausoleum of questions and a piece of plastic for a mother. Those tears aren't even real, he snaps. As the family continues to bicker, Pogo presses a button and the coffin slowly descends into the earth. Meanwhile, in the city, it's a cold day outside of the Icarus Theater. Vanya steps inside, calling out to the darkness and asking if anyone is there, when suddenly the stage light comes on, practically blinding her. Who's there? What is this? Are you some sort of pervert? She asks, and the audience is nothing but shadows to her as the voice calls to her to play something. Vanya warns them that she hasn't played in almost 12 years, but she pulls out her violin and she begins to play a long string of notes. When she finally finishes, the darkness erupts into applause and the lights go on, finally revealing the audience before her. They all stand, dressed in fancy clothes and wearing masks. Can I interest you in destroying the world? The cloaked gentleman in the front row asks. Vanya, still confused, demands to know who they are. The man stands up, introducing himself as the Orchestra Verdammten, the finest musicians in the world, but very unique, a collection of madmen and murderers, hearts and deeds as black as the instruments we play. I am the conductor, he tells her. The conductor informs her that they have a new piece, the Apocalypse Suit. If played at the right key with the right dynamic, it will destroy the world. It's just missing one thing, you. He tells her, and the conductor looks at Vanya, telling her that her father could have been wrong about her. Could you be capable of something great? He asks her, but Vanya turns to walk out, and one of the conductor's guards begin to follow her. But the villain places his hand on the man's shoulder. Let her go. She's most likely going to her family for comfort, in which case we will expect her back very soon. At the mansion, Diego goes flying out the window, quickly followed by Luther, as Rumor shouts for them both from the window. I wasn't expecting coffee and cake to go so poorly, Pogo sighs. Well then, you're not as smart as you look, Klaus tells him. Luther lands in the yard, smacking Diego in the mouth as he makes another comment. He pulls out his laser pistol, aiming it at his brother. Rumor and Five come running out, with the young time traveler yelling at his family. Maybe I haven't made myself clear? What I learned in the future, the world was going to be destroyed just 3 days after Hargreaves' death. Time is running out. Luther stares down the sight of his pistol, glaring at Diego. You haven't changed one bit, Rumor whispers, finally turning and walking away from the family. Suddenly, Pogo and Klaus come floating down, with the chimp pointing at a large fire in the distance. The carnival! He shouts, and Luther turns, staring at the distant destruction. The Terminats, he whispers. He explains to Five that the villain known as Dr. Terminal programmed his robots to reactivate if the Umbrella Academy should ever reform. Luther turns back, walking into the house as Pogo points out that Diego is leaping into the water, heading to the carnival. Let him go. Maybe he'll get himself killed. Everyone else to the televator, because according to the Terminats, we're a team again, Luther tells them, heading back in. And there you have it, the first 2 issues of Umbrella Academy Volume 1. Now, obviously, this is a 6-issue series, but I wanted to give it some time and effort. I wanted to make these episodes really good for you guys, because if you enjoy this and you want us to do this on a frequent basis, we want to bring them out more frequently, probably on a weekly basis like we do with Avatar and now the Power Rangers series. Basically, with it being on Netflix, now's the best time for us to finally cover Umbrella Academy. As you can tell, it's a bit different from the show. The show's a little more grounded. The comic book's a little more out there. So this is the origins of the team reforming. They came back together because of the father's death. They are officially a team. The show is more drama-based as everyone kind of disperses again. They go off and do their own things. They come back together. The comic just makes them a team and they go fight villains again. It's very superhero-driven. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Don't forget to give this video a like if you want more Umbrella Academy. If this video gets enough likes, we'll do more of it. If you don't want more Umbrella Academy, don't give the video a like. That's really how this is going to work. Also, consider subscribing to the channel so you'll know when we continue doing this series. Either way, guys, thank you so much for your continued support. And don't forget, we have YouTube memberships. You can get early access to our projects there, sometimes a couple hours, sometimes a whole week in advance. It kind of depends on how things are flowing. But either way, thank you so much for your continued support, and we'll see you next time right here at the Comicstorian channel.